Guys, welcome back. This is Eric here with Guitarsenal. Just tooling around a little bit, hopefully not making too many terrible sounds. Today we're taking a look at a very special amplifier. This is a Traynor YBA 1, which is also known as the Bassmaster amplifier. This one was made in the mid-60s in Canada by a company called Traynor, obviously. And these are sort of a best-kept secret in the world of high-gain players that want to get the sort of Marshall sound, but don't want to fork out the money for a real Plexi. This amplifier's had some modifications done to it. They're very friendly to modification. They're very easy to work on. They're very, not unlike an early Marshall or Bassman circuit in terms of the way that they're made. And the way these amps come apart to service, they're stupid easy. You just take the top off and the whole guts are right there. They're super easy to service, super well made, real high quality Hammond transformers, output transformers, which I blew mine. We'll talk about that in a minute. But very high quality transformers. The story on the street is that in the early days when they were making these amps, they would take a test sample of them, drop them off the roof of the factory, pick them up off the ground. If the tubes broke, put new tubes in them, fire them up and put them through a heat cycle and make sure they would work. So they were very stringent about the quality of their units and the roadworthiness of their units. Traynor went on to make a wide variety of different amplifiers over the years, but the Bassmaster, the YBA1, is really, in my opinion, the best amplifier they ever made. This particular example is a very early version. It's got early cosmetics, early knobs, and yes, I did have it modified. None of the mods are irreversible. You can always reverse the mods. It's not that big of a deal. But right now, what we're listening to is a really angry mid-60s Plexi. What I had Jeff at Andrew's Amp Lab do was do a Plexi mod on this, and it sounds pretty mean. We're running through a Mesa Boogie Lone Star extension cabinet. It's a 410 cabinet with vintage Jensens in it. Okay, so we got 4 10-inch Jensen speakers. So what I'm going for here is like Bassman meets Marshall. I want the 410s of the open back cabinet, which is a high quality pine cabinet made by Mesa Boogie. I've got the open back nature of the open back 410 cabinet, but with the grind of a Marshall. We're running an Aerocom amplifier's attenuator so we don't blow our eardrums out. And the amplifier is cranked and it's set to an amount of settings that I feel would be indicative of a nice Marshall. So just like a Marshall, you've got volume 1 and volume 2, treble, bass, presence, and mid control. Right now, the expansion module that they show, none of that, that's all bypassed, okay? You have the bypass switch on the front of the amp, the power switch on the back of the amp. The output transformer on this one is wired to 4 ohms, and we're running into a 4 ohm cabinet. And we're running the attenuator obviously set to 4 ohms. I blew the old attenuator, setting it to the wrong setting on the Aerocom, and I blew the old output transformer. So anyway, the amp grinds, and we're pushing it here with, this is a 67 reissue SG or 62? It's a 60s reissue SG. My poor attempt at rock. Guys, I'm not a rock player, so just please bear with me there. We're going to clean it up some. I do have a little bit of splash of reverb going. Here's the amp, just completely dry. It's got a really grinding sound to it. It's a little more grind than I probably care to go with, but I bought it as a studio tool. If we do want to get that heavy, crazy kind of sound, it can definitely get it. I mean, we just give it a splash of reverb and just no pedals. This is just right into the amp, but just with a splash of reverb from the Strymon Flint. I mean, you can totally get into that. You can get into that grinding kind of territory. Okay, we do have it completely maxed out. I'll tell you what, just for fun, let's try to clean it up a little bit. I'm going to go over here and we're going to leave the attenuation set where it's at. Let's just dial back the amp to about 6. If you guys know anything about the Traynor YBA, you know that these things are obscenely loud. They're very, very loud amps. And even on 6, if we weren't running an attenuator, this thing would be stupid, in a good way, annoying to play through. Let's give it a listen on 6, just dialing back a bit. See if we can woman up that a little bit by dialing out our tone control on this SG here. Whoa, whatever that was. Beautiful. It actually sounds really nice on the lower register. Let's break that down a little more. We're seeing if we can clean it up. Okay, here's on 4. And I would imagine here we're getting a little bit more into the, let's see. Very convincing AC/DC tone, if I do say so myself. Which, you know, you can't go wrong with a cranked Marshall, getting into some of that just crazy, girthy, you know, big girthy chords, and I'm out of tune. It's very important when you're running a high gain amplifier to keep your guitar in tune, or you're going to have a very miserable day, and it's not going to sound like you want it to. This SG is sounding beautiful, hopefully, if I can do it some justice. This is a kind of amplifier that is a heck of a lot of fun to get behind. If you're a rock musician, I know a lot of folks that watch this channel have been saying, hey, Eric, play some rock. I'm not really much of a rock guy, I'm more of a blues and jazz sort of guy, but I really do enjoy grinding away on some chords. And man, if you just had a track that you're trying to lay down in the studio where you're trying to get that grind, I mean, the amp is only on like 4, right? I mean, it just gets that. I mean, when you dry it up, when it's nice and dry, you get that tight rhythm pattern, which is great for chunky rhythm chords and just really get into some of that sort of rock stuff, you know, which is not my forte, but it's still really fun to hear these big chunky chords coming out of this thing. It's a really nice sounding amplifier, okay? If you guys encounter a Traynor YBA in the wild that's not Plexi'd like this one, they sound wonderful too. Make no mistake, they are awesome amplifiers. They're built really, really well. They use very good components. They copy a very trusted and multiply copied circuit in of itself. And they're made with a lot of love and care and attention. They've stood the test of time. These amps are great. If you can find them, they're a great buy, especially if you can play through it, listen to it before you buy it. Cosmetically, the amps have changed a little bit over the years. This one's a mid-60s, so it has, I feel like a much more classic appearance versus you get into some of the ones that are in the mid to late 70s. They start taking on a little bit uglier of an appearance, but don't get me wrong, the YBAs from the 70s are still great amps. It's still got a great circuit in it. They're just not, the cabinets aren't made quite as well on the later versions. I would imagine this amp is going to be kicking 40 years from now. It's a tried and true amp. These things are great. I picked it up because I don't really have like a heavy rock amp. I don't really consider myself a heavy rock musician, but hopefully that gave you an idea of what this amp can do and what it can sound like. I tried to give you some big chunky chords and a couple of lines. Hopefully I didn't make it sound too terrible, but it gives you an idea of what the amp can do. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I could chunk away on this bad boy all day long, but just be warned, if you buy one of these and you don't own an attenuator, they are extremely loud, just about too loud for any stage situation unless you're playing a huge venue. It's an extremely loud amplifier. It really takes an attenuator to tame it where you can get it down to stage volume. But if you're willing to contend with that and you don't have the cash for a Plexi, this is a really good way to do it. Buy a YBA, take it to a good amp tech, have them mod it to a Plexi, and rock on and just go for it. So guys, thanks for watching. We post every Monday and Friday here on Guitarsenal. Make sure you tune in to our videos. We appreciate you. I'm gonna make a little bit more racket. Literally, I've been making racket in this video. Hopefully not too bad. Have yourselves a great day. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.